So we're currently in an in-between period for Pokemon right now, where Gen 9 is more or less on the way out, and we're waiting for what's on the horizon. Pokemon Legends ZA is on the way, and likely the next year after that is going to be Generation 10 in 2026 for the 30th anniversary of the franchise. Now, I've been thinking, and I think it's actually possible to narrow down what might be coming in Gen 10, and along with that, what starter Pokemon we might see in those games. And breaking that down and giving you a glimpse of that possibility is what this video is all about. So let's get to it. And helping to make all that possible is today's sponsor, Opera GX. Opera GX is a web browser that's setting a new standard, and it's out to give you an amazingly fun and high-quality experience while surfing the web. Browsers are pretty unexciting and uninteresting these days, but Opera GX fixes all of that with mods. Mods up your browser game with background music, keyboard sounds when you open and close your tabs, they can change the theme and colors of your browser, they give you amazing themed wallpapers, and it's all fully customizable, meaning that you can turn on or off whatever you want from each individual mod and mix and match each effect with other mods. And you can check out all of these mods, of which there are tons, at the GX store, meaning you can customize your browser to your heart's content. Another thing other browsers do is eat up a lot of your computer's CPU and RAM, but Opera GX lets you control how much of those resources your browser is allowed to use, so it won't ever let your browser bog down your computer again. Opera GX even has ChatGPT built right into it now, so you can optimize your research, studying, or just about anything you want to save some time on. This browser even has features specifically for gamers, as Opera's GX Corner keeps you up to date with the best deals on games, the newest stuff that's coming out, and it will even highlight games that you can play for free. And on top of all of that, Opera GX even has an import tool that lets you import all your settings from your previous browser so you can switch over without missing a beat. And you don't even have to give up your precious Google Chrome extensions because it's compatible with every single one of them as well. So go ahead and use my link below to download Opera GX today. It's free, it's fun, and it's definitely worth taking for a spin, so be sure to give it a look, and a big thank you to Opera GX for sponsoring this video. Okay, so the way that I believe we can narrow down what the Gen 10 starters might be like is because I think the region of Generation 10 can already be narrowed down to a few select candidates, and then from there we can get a vision of what its starters might be like. Given that, as I mentioned, Gen 10 is likely going to be coming out in celebration of the franchise's 30th anniversary, this region, whatever it is gonna be a big deal, and with it also being the first double-digit generation, it's gonna be an even bigger deal. That is why the Gen 10 Pokemon region has got to be based on somewhere that can step up to that plate and be fitting for that kind of moment. In my personal opinion, while there are obviously lots of places in the world that would make for great Pokemon regions, there's only a few that would make sense, at least to me, as the Generation 10 region under these circumstances. The first one of these is Australia. Now, I'm going to get into why Australia is a very strong candidate, but we need to go ahead and see some starter Pokemon already. So with Australia as a possibility, these are an example of the kind of starters we could see in that region. We got a grass kangaroo, a fire snake, and a water platypus. I'll discuss why these guys make sense as starters as well, but first let's talk about why Australia is a likely Pokemon region in Gen 10. First, it's probably the most in demand at this point. Fans have been requesting an Australian region for years, to the point where even though it might sound like a random choice for an anniversary generation, it would also be very fitting because of that demand, and because of how perfect Australia would be as a region in general. It basically already is a Pokemon region with the kind of wildlife they got over there, so you don't need me to tell you why that makes sense. And then, the thing that really pushes it over the hump is that there's actually a lot of in-game evidence to support this idea. I don't have time to go into it fully here, so check this video out if you want a full breakdown, but basically there is a lot of evidence in Scarlet and Violet that has to do with Hassel and a certain Mr. Gibble that helps teach his class, that points in the direction of an Australian region. It's actually quite compelling to me personally, so between the fit and the evidence, I think Australia is a very strong possibility. As for the starters, a kangaroo obviously makes sense as it's one of Australia's national symbols, but it's also fitting as a grass type because this guy is more specifically based on a tree kangaroo, and with a name like that, you're just asking to be made into a Pokemon. The snake, meanwhile, also works well because not only does it go with the Chinese zodiac that the fire starters have famously followed, but it also has that air of exoticness to it that would fit perfectly with an Australian region due to its very exotic flora and fauna. And then, finally, we have the infamous platypus. And in addition to the fact that it's obviously what everyone would want, a platypus is the perfect candidate for a water starter in an Australian region because it has the one trait that every water starter needs and also has to this point: the ability to live and roam on land while also being aquatic in nature. That can be a tricky thing to pull off sometimes, but the platypus does it effortlessly, and with also being such a symbol of Australia as well, it would be perfect as a starter Pokemon who represent their regions in much the same way. I imagined that these guys could evolve into a grass fighting type for the kangaroo, a fire ghost type for the snake since it is based on a death adder, and a water poison type for the platypus, since platypuses, or platypi, I'm not sure which, are venomous. By the way, these starters that I'm going to be showing off in this video are kinda just general concepts, so feel free to give me some name suggestions in the comments for what you would call these guys, because I would genuinely love to hear what you guys can come up with. So yeah, that is a glimpse at what I believe is a very strong possibility for Generation 10, but another place that also has a good shot, in my opinion, to be the next Pokemon region is the Western United States. The Western US is another place that is just dying to become a Pokemon region, and it makes a ton of business sense to not only do it, but to do it in Gen 10. First off, the US is obviously a pretty big market for Pokemon, and the concept of having a game set in a region based on it would be a great move from a marketing perspective, especially during an anniversary year where more people's eyes are going to be on the series. There's also the fact that, like Australia, the Western US from a geography perspective would also make for a perfect region as well. You could even throw a little bit of that iconic Wild West cowboy culture in there for a bit of added spice, and you would have an absolutely killer region in my opinion. I also feel like it's really only a matter of time before we get another US region as well, which will likely be the Western US when we do, so the stars just kind of feel like they're all aligning for this as a possibility. And with that said, these are what the starters of a Western US region could look like if that were to happen. First up, we've got a grass buffalo, followed by a fire horse, and then finally a water beaver. And this trio in particular, I feel like could legitimately be the trio that we would get for a region like this, because each one of them are a perfect fit in my opinion. First off, the buffalo is an absolute symbol of the American West, and there's actually a subspecies of buffalo called the wood buffalo, or wood bison more specifically, which, just like the tree kangaroo from earlier, is just asking for the Pokemon treatment. The fire horse, meanwhile, is a no-brainer because it once again follows the Chinese zodiac and one of the animals from it that has not become a starter to this point. And just like the buffalo, the horse is also another symbol of the American West, particularly the Wild West cowboy era of this area, which is like the first thing that you think of when you think of the Western US. And then the water beaver is also another great fit in my opinion, since it's another inspiration that could reside on both water and land, which, like I said, is a necessity for water starters, and like the other two starters, the beaver is also a significant part of Western US history due to it being a key target of mountain men and fur trappers, which were also another iconic facet of the Wild West. As tough as it is to be able to predict starter Pokemon like this, if a Western US region ever does happen, and even in potentially Gen 10, I would not be surprised at all to see something at least close to this actually happen, and if it did, I think it would be pretty cool as well. As we get into this next one though, a big shout out goes to my man R. Gray Wind for drawing the artwork of all the starter designs in this video, and as always, you can check him out with the links in the description to see more of his stuff. This next region is another strong candidate that I believe has as strong of a case as any to be the 10th Pokemon region, and that is another Japanese region. By the time Gen 10 rolls around, likely in 2026, it will have basically been 20 years since we have seen a Japanese region, and with the series originating in Japan, there's obviously going to be a softer spot for that than anywhere else in the world. On top of that, with this being the 10th generation and likely the 30th anniversary at the same time, it makes sense to do something that's a little more sentimental, like returning to the series' roots with a new Japanese region. As of Gen 9, we also now have more non-Japanese regions than we have Japanese ones, and Gen 10 would be a nice opportunity for Game Freak to cheekily even things out in that regard. Regarding the starters though, I actually don't want to say too much here and give too much away, because you've actually already potentially seen what new Japanese starters could look like with the starters from my new Pokemon Crimson and Ivy series, as that series will be exploring this Japanese possibility in a more fully fleshed out way, so be sure to stay tuned for that and check out the reveal video to see even more if you haven't yet. But with that being said, the starters in a Japanese region I could see being sort of a sentimental callback to Generation 1, with it likely being tied to the 30th anniversary and everything. And as such, they could be based on common pets, just like Bulbasaur, Charmander, and Squirtle also were. And that is what resulted in the Grass-type Pupperoot, the Fire-type Snekindle, and the Water-type Tawtrot. Thematically, I think that this would make a lot of sense for a Japanese region and would also just make for a good trio in general. And again, this is going to be the trio from this video that we will actually be able to become fully acquainted with in my Pokemon Crimson and Ivy series. So be sure to check out that reveal video and stay tuned for the series premiere later this year. I did want to make sure that there was a good amount of new stuff in this video though, aside from the stuff I've already showed you, so I have one more region and one more set of starters to talk about here. This one I am officially designating as my wildcard pick, because while I believe it could be possible, it just doesn't feel like as strong of a candidate as the other ones that I've mentioned in this video. And that is a region based on the Netherlands. I have mentioned this possibility in past videos, so I would suggest checking those out if you want the full in-depth explanation, but basically there is some evidence that points in the direction of a Netherlands region. There's even some in-game evidence, in fact, such as this map from the Scarlet and Violet DLC looking very much and very suspiciously like a part of the map of the Netherlands, which obviously raises a lot of eyebrows. So in terms of legit in-game evidence, this is a real true possibility, but with this being an anniversary generation, I just feel like the Netherlands wouldn't make quite as big of a splash as, say, an Australian region, or a Western US region, or a Japanese region would. And there is also the fact that we do have 3 European-based regions at this point, and we've had 2 in a row, so having a third one in a row kind of doesn't seem as likely either. But with that said, I would like to reassure all of my Dutch friends out there that I do think the Netherlands would make for a great region regardless, and if it were to happen in Generation 10, I would be totally down, which is why I decided to keep it as my wildcard pick. And in terms of starters for a region like this is what I thought would make sense for a Netherlands region. The grass-type wolf would be a cool possibility that also makes sense, as I've mentioned before how we haven't really had a true dog starter yet, so we are due for one, and while wolves technically aren't true dogs either, they are about as close as you can get. And they also have a bit of a presence in the Netherlands, and also a wolf starter just sounds like an amazing idea, so it's something that I could see and would love to see as well. The fire type that I chose for a Netherlands region is an ox, because it, like the other fire starters in this video, comes from the Chinese zodiac, and an ox starter could work well just about anywhere in my opinion. Also, a fire ox is just a cool concept, and I think that shines through well in this design. And then, last but not least, we also have the water starter, who is this friend-shaped little fella. This guy is a little crab because, like I've mentioned for the other water starters in this video, the crab is an aquatic creature who can also venture out onto land, which is a must for water starters as I've said, and we've never seen a crab starter before, so I feel like we are also just about due for one. And like the ox, a crab starter could work well just about anywhere. With that said though, what do you guys think about these potential candidates for Generation 10? Do you think they make sense as likely candidates, and what do you think about these starter ideas? Are any of them something that you would want to see for the Generation 10 starters? Be sure to let me know with a comment and leave a like and subscribe as well if you're new, and with that said, I will see you guys soon with another new video. Until then, as always, thanks a ton for watching this one, I really appreciate it, and I will smell you guys later.